call to order the Charter Review Committee meeting of April 26th. And if you all would join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you do the roll call, please?
Dan Dragonetti.
Present.
Mike Barron.
Here.
Dick Kroll.
Here.
Matthew Sims is not with us. Beth Mitchell.
Here.
Louise Kottenberg.
Here.
Carolyn Sartain Anderson.
Here.
Sergio Mota.
Here.
Nancy Munez.
Here.
Frank Terranova. Here. Bob Zomak.
Here.
And Albert Iovino, Bruce Hoffman, and Fred Jones have asked for an excused absence. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will call for public input. Not seeing any public, we will move on to, approval of the minutes.
Move to accept. Second. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Like sign, the motion passes. Thank you. And now public input. I see no public input, so we'll move on to our unfinished business. It appears that our evening is one of review, and I guess the best way to get started is to go to the packet that was sent out to you with a list of the items that this committee has talked about for a number of weeks now. It starts on page 7 of the packet. So the number one topic for consideration is section 1.02, extraterritorial powers. Committee members?
I just had we're on number 1, right? I had a question on this. Can this be worded simply to just, to just say something like, I guess what I'm getting at, do we have to repeat the entire section 4, or can we simply say adding the words information technology and telecommunications to the public utility responsibilities of the state, or something like that? Can it be really short?
I think it can be shortened, but really, this is just the way this will not appear on the ballot like this. This is the actual text of the charter, this particular paragraph,
right,
and attached to the ordinance that the City Council will consider calling the election and putting question on the ballot. Attached to that ordinance as an exhibit will be this paragraph with the two information technology and telecommunication, those words inserted. So you don't need to worry that the ballot will be clogged up with a lengthy paragraph. It won't. It'll be a very straightforward sentence.
Does anybody else have any other comments on this section? No? Okay. We'll move on to topic 2 for consideration, extraterritorial powers, section 1.02.
A question, is our purpose tonight just to see if we agree with these, and is there another motion or something to
That's a great
approve these?
question.
To approve these, to go forward, or what do we do?
These have already been approved.
Okay.
And the clerk was providing you with this overview of what the committee has accomplished so far in terms of motion and a vote. And no further motion is necessary. It's just before you to see what has occurred already. If somebody wishes to make an amendment, or deletion or whatever, that's a different story. But no, nothing further is required of you with regard to these that have already passed.
At the last meeting, I brought up that we may want to go about it another way and prioritize. And thinking back, the last time that we had this on the ballot, and as you brought up at the last meeting, Bob, this is a very lengthy ballot. And I'm afraid that, being that we're at the bottom, I believe, of the ballot, that important things may be overlooked and not voted for the right way. So I open a thought that we go through these 7, and then we really look at which ones we really want, and that and reviewing them. Also, I noticed that there are a couple that are minor that we really aren't getting all bent out of shape about. That there are those that are more important.
So if the committee agrees, what we'll do is we'll go through the entire list, and then we can go back and prioritize.
I like that.
Okay. All right. So we are on section 1.02. Are there any comments on this particular section? Yes, that's, okay. All right. On page 8 of your agenda packet is topic 3 for consideration, election. And the committee's action was to ultimately recommend that the terms for council members change from 2 to 4 years. And there was then a housekeeping motion that was made by myself regarding procedures. And I think this is also the item where Attorney Ginsburg has provided us with a handout. So maybe you would like to start that conversation?
Okay. Yes. I noticed in the minutes, and I recall that I promised last time in response, I think, to a discussion with Ms. Mitchell, that I would attempt to sort out this particular issue. And what you have before you as a separate handout are 2 things relating to this issue. One would be the ballot title and language. By the way, all of this is in draft form. I didn't stamp it draft. There's no pride of authorship, but I wanted to show you what it might look like. And the second page is how the charter would read if the voters approve the ballot question. And you'll see, with regard to the ballot question, you should know the state statutes provide that the title of any ballot question cannot exceed 15 words, and that the number of words in the question itself can't exceed 75 words. So this title and this proposed question meet those state requirements. The question has to be asked in such a way that it calls for a yes or a no answer. And so this meets that too. In any event, I tried to include both thoughts, the 4-year term and the election in even-numbered years, in both the title and in the ballot question. In the attached proposed charter language, which is your second page, There are 3 sections of the charter, I believe, that are affected should the citizens approve the question, and I dealt with them. Well, 203, I completely eliminated what was there, and I replaced it with what you see there under 203, a new title, Elections and Terms. All of this is new language. And under 412, I eliminated what you see there, the last half of the sentence that comprises that section, that portion of the section.
This wouldn't appear on the ballot.
Yes.
This would?
No, that's not on the ballot. That's the actual language that would be reflected in the charter.
This is the first page.
The first page would be the ballot language. That's what the citizens would see.
Essentially, this is the same thing that was voted on and defeated in 2011, right?
Yes.
In 2011, we had elect even number of years and 4-year terms, just kind of
Yes.
flip-flopped. And it was defeated soundly.
Yes, it was.
I guess my question is why it was defeated soundly and what could be done differently in terms of wording or what have you to make it more palatable. Because one of the things that strikes me is that it saves money in doing it in election years, and we can't say that on the ballot, though, can we?
You can't say that, but we might be able to make a reference, as I tried to. Maybe it was too subtle, and you may be right. When I said at the time of the general election in November, we only have general elections in even-numbered years. We didn't have to call a special election for Sebastian, you know, in odd-numbered years, which are the ones we have to pay for. There might be a way to make a reference to the general election as being one that's already scheduled or something like that. That's a possibility.
In 2011, for those who don't have this, it received 992 votes for and 1,613 against, so about almost 2 to 1, close to 2 to 1. So, and I don't know why people reacted that way. I guess I think they'll react the same way.
Or the committee to consider.
A lot of people like shorter terms rather than longer terms. I'd be stuck with someone for 4 years when I can only get stuck with him for 2, and then have him, if he does a good job, re-elect him.
Should it be 2 separate amendments?
No.
No, okay.
We would get into, well, it could only be if you want to eliminate staggered terms. And this committee hasn't really discussed that issue, but that's a possibility. That's a different set of priorities.
I think this ballot proposal does the job quite well.
And like I say, this is draft language. I reserve the right to change when I go before the city council. If you continue, you know, recommending this concept, I've thought about it a great deal, and I'll continue to think about it, because I want to make it as clear as possible for somebody in the voting booth.
Mr. Ginsburg, I have a question, and we talked early on in this process about educating the public about why we are making certain recommendations. So what kind of opportunities do we have to do that?
You can, I think the idea is to include your recommendations and the city council's acceptance of whichever ones they accept to go on the ballot. In the Pelican, I forget the name of the newspaper we put out.
I think it's the Brief.
Magazine, Pelican Brief? Or
Something.
I think that was a
Pelican News? Yes,
Pelican.
you're right, Mr. Zomock, that was the movie. Denzel Washington, we can get Denzel Washington to support this, that would be good. No, but we can explain these things. Some of the rationale can be put forward, but the city cannot take a position for or against. It's got to be completely a neutral statement, so we have to be very careful about what we say. The important thing, I think, is to make sure that citizens understand what's here so they can make their own judgment when they vote.
We also have 2 public meetings where they can ask questions.
Yes,
Are
that's
those
true.
public meetings televised also?
Yes.
Then I just have one comment about your language, and that would be, is there any way to insert the word efficient into this? And I don't want to go down the road of wordsmithing, but I
Where
don't
would you
see
want it
any
inserted?
adjectives or any adverbs or anything like that now. Is there?
And that, yeah. I'm going to write that down and I'll think about it.
Okay. Okay. All right, and so does anybody have any other comments about Section 203, or Section 412, I'm sorry? Okay, then we'll move on. Topic 4 for consideration. This is an item that came up early, and it was noticed early on that there was language that was not in the charter, which would have provided that the mayor serves for a 1-year term. And the committee moved forward to add that language. So I will turn it over to the committee to discuss it one more time. Does anybody have any comments on it?
I think it's a good amendment,
Okay,
just the way it is.
okay. I'm sorry?
I'm on the other side of that.
And I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle.
I think we got that covered.
So I'm not sure about procedure on this one. I know that I made it clear at our last meeting that I had changed my mind on this. So is it appropriate for me to withdraw my second and see what happens? No?
This was already voted on.
Yes.
Correct.
Once it's voted on, you don't withdraw your second.
Okay, can't do that. Okay, keep me straight.
The only way to deal with it now would be another main motion.
Okay.
You could start with a reconsideration, but I think we're beyond the time for that, too.
Okay. So then, would any other committee member want to make a motion? All right.
I would move that we leave this section of the charter exactly the way it is.
Then I would second that for discussion. Okay, discussion. Ms. Kottenberg, do you want to speak to the issue?
Well, again, as I mentioned in the last meeting, I feel very strongly that the council is a team. No council person has a greater authority than any other, and I believe that that team has the right to choose their own captain, as it were. And if that's not working, then they have the right to reorganize and choose a different captain. If we change it, they don't have the right to do that. And that's just the way I feel about it.
I think we,
I agree with Louise. I feel the same way. I think that we should just leave it the way it is. It's worked all these years. It hasn't come up as an issue. I believe it came up because there was a very sensitive situation that occurred at a city council meeting, which, again, the council dealt with it the way they felt they needed to deal with it. And I think if we do this, we don't give them that flexibility.
I have 2 thoughts. One is, looking at it from the general public standpoint of, I'm a believer of continuity, and if you had a situation where you're constantly, and maybe that's an exaggeration, constantly, but potentially changing mayors, you know, with some regularity, and that whatever happened a month or so ago happens again next month because it's so easily done. To me, that reflects badly on an organization, on the council in this case, on the city, and so on and so forth. If we can have a year term for a vice mayor specified, why can't we have a year term for a mayor specified? Does that say that the vice mayor is not important? I don't know.
Can I just respond to that? In the 20 years that I've been here, it's happened once. I don't think that I don't think that it's our job to tie the hands of the council to organize themselves. That's their job to figure that out. And I don't think we run into a situation of a change at every 6 months or once a year kind of thing. Obviously once a year, but we don't run into it, we're going to change it every 3 weeks, because it's only happened once in 20 years.
I guess all the more reason why we shouldn't have a year term. To me. So,
I happen to agree with Mr. Kroll. If we have a year's term for the vice mayor, why not for the mayor? And I think we need some continuity as the face of the town in all public appearances. You know, the mayor here, he's a, what I call a pomp and circumstance mayor, right? He has no authority to do anything really except run the council meetings, right? But he's going to be patting babies on the butt. He's going to be cutting ribbons when business is open. He's going to be walking in a parade. He becomes the face of the town for a period of time. And if something happens where we're going to be, as Mr. Kroll might have said, going through a revolving door where you got a different face facing every time, you're going to hear a lot of people who are going to be very critical of that situation. And a lot of people in the paper, after this incident did happen, were very critical of that situation. I think we should just make it the same as the one-year term for the vice mayor, and if nothing happens in another 20 years, hooray.
Can I respond to that?
Oh, anytime you'd like.
Okay. I think when we're talking about the office of the mayor and the office of the vice mayor, we are really talking about two different things. The vice mayor has absolutely nothing at all to do unless the mayor, for some reason, can't attend a meeting. His position, vice mayor, his or her position as vice mayor, is much more negligible. The idea of, as you mentioned, many people like to see a short term because that way you can get rid of somebody you're not happy with. Why would we want to stick a council for an entire year with somebody that they can't operate with, or if there should be a case, somebody who is acting contrary to the actions of a council in general? Just as any committee, when a committee determines that a specific action by vote is the action that is chosen, selected, or whatever, the rest of the committee, I feel, is obligated to say, well, that's what was, that I did, it wasn't my particular choice, but that's what the general agreement was, so that's what we go along with. There can be instances where a member, the mayor or another member, would be considered out of line if he's going contrary to what the group said. And again, I think it's our job to tell the council that just in the most basic of ways, this is how you operate, but we're not going to tell you whether you have to use your left hand or your right hand to hold the broom with. Just, you know, that's just the way I feel about it. And I feel very strongly about it. No personalities should enter into this. No action of whatever happened or didn't happen should enter into our discussion. has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about the charter, not something that happened last week or might happen next week. We're not predictors of that, but.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why is there not a one-year term? How did that,
It has never been needed.
it has never been,
Never been needed.
I didn't hear your question.
I said, why was that never in the charter?
Okay.
I'd like to ask the other question, is why is there a one-year term in the charter for the vice mayor?
That sounds like a rhetorical question.
If the mayor is, mayor position changed like it did recently, the vice mayor's selected also. The vice mayor doesn't stay in position if he doesn't become the new mayor, right? He's also selected again. I mean, a different vice mayor could be selected when a new mayor is selected, right?
Well, my guess would be that in the event something untoward happened to the mayor, the vice mayor is there,
Steps in.
he steps in. And so the council members have already chosen him to do that.
And they're going to choose during the reorganization meeting who the mayor is going to be. So there's a chosen one for that also. My question is, why in the charter is there a one-year term for the vice mayor?
I'm not sure any of us can answer that question.
Well,
None
then
of
why
us
not
sat
make
on
it
the
the same for
original
the-
charter.
For the mayor.
I respect your position, and I know that everybody respects each other's position in this committee. I believe that, just like you say, if someone is elected for 4 years, we're stuck with them if they don't do a good job. The council functions as a team, and if that team feels that for whatever reason, they're not able to function appropriately, and their token figurehead is not a good face for the city of Sebastian, that is their right according to the charter.
The problem that we had in that last situation, which caused this to be brought up, is that nobody came out with any reason as to why they were doing this. I still haven't heard any reason as to why they were doing this. If they wanted to get rid of this mayor at that time, he offered his resignation, and he could have been there, but they didn't take his resignation because they had it planned that there was going to be a reorganization, right? And the whole situation is, I don't know why that guy is. You know, I read this charter, and this mayor is a figurehead, right?
Right.
He's also a councilman. The same thing with the vice mayor. You say he's got no duties, the vice mayor, right? But he's a councilman also, right? If they're not getting along, they're not getting along basically as councilmen usually. The council isn't doing the patting on the back and everything else that the mayor's doing. What brought about the situation here? I don't know.
No, I don't know, and as I said, I don't think any of us really know. I mean, that's something we need to ask the council if we want to know. But here, we're talking about the charter here, and I understand there's a lot of emotion attached to the issue of the reorganization of the council. But I don't think, as Louise has said, in 20 years, it's never been necessary, it's never come up. I don't think this is something that's going to be happening at every single council meeting or once a year or once a month. I just think that there's so much emotion attached to the issue, and we all want to just do our job, which is to review the charter and determine what needs to be changed that's going to make the city function better.
Right. I share Mr. Terranova's point of view. I've been quiet here, but I'm not going to be quiet. We still don't know what happened. We have no idea. He was just removed, but there was no reason. He wasn't given a chance to explain what happened. The take that my neighbors have on what happened is that it was sort of backroom personality clash politics that did Richard Gilmore in. Who was right and who was wrong, you know what I mean? I don't know, because I don't have the data to make an intelligent evaluation of what led to that. But in my mind, it'll always be a very, very open question of what caused that. From the way it looked, it looked like a bunch of people ganged up on Mayor Gilmore behind closed doors and decided that he was going to be removed. Thank you.
Bob?
Thanks, Beth. You obviously know where I'm coming down on this. The charter is the constitution for the city. And even though this instance only occurred once, the fact of the matter is it did occur. And I think that it did interrupt the continuity of the process of council functioning. The part that is really passionate with me is during the course of that whole thing, they relied on the silence of the charter in order to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. It was a non-objective decision that the mayor was operating, in their opinion, counter to what council wanted. Non-objective. I don't think that it is, once the council makes the decision and putting in there a one-year term necessarily sticks council with one given person. You know, this person was considered out of line, but again, there was no objective criteria through the course of that. The person offered a resignation. It was refused in order to subvert what the normal process would be, where the vice mayor would then take over. And I think in that this is the Constitution, and even our national Constitution has been amended, and in order to provide that continuity, I think that I agree with Mr. Kroll that in terms of providing continuity with it, I think that also adding the one-year term in essence forces council to be more open in terms of how and why you want to remove a ceremonial mayor. That part, and again, the part that just is the most devastating to me is the fact that they relied on the charter being silent. And from my perspective, adding in a one-year term for the mayor is hardly devastating. It provides for continuity. It provides for at least some sort of open discussion in terms of why, and avoids going literally outside of the charter in order to have something done. And that's exactly what happened. During the course of that entire meeting, they relied upon the silence of the charter. Let's make it overt. Let's make it equal, okay? That one-year term for the vice mayor, one-year term for the mayor, and if they want to do something that is outside of that, in order to remove the mayor, that there needs to be some sort of open process where it demonstrates malfeasance of office. You know, the fact that they didn't like that he was spending 20 hours a week here, that's at least the piece of it that I got, okay? So, again, I think that from a continuity standpoint, I think that from the standpoint of relying on the silence of the charter in order to accomplish this, and just slapping this person in the face in terms of, I offer my resignation, no. We would rather humiliate you and put us through this other process because the charter is silent on it. And realize I'm passionate about that too, okay? But I think that it deserves some attention. The fact that it only happened once in 20 years, the fact of the matter is, it happened once. And let's preclude it happening again.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you, Mr.
agree with
Zomack.
that 100%. All of that was very, very covert.
Mr.
and-
Dragonetti, I would prefer that we not restate everything that we've already stated. And I understand your points, and
I
I've
agree
heard your
with
points.
Mr. Zomack, what he
Is,
just
Mr.
said.
Baron, do you have a
I just
comment?
have one comment, and it's nothing against the emotions of these guys. I agree with Louise on the main thing, and then also Mr. Zomack. It is a team effort, and all the teams need to play by the same rules. So if they are a team, and the mayor's a team, part of the team, the vice mayor, everybody plays by the same rules that I know of in sports as a team. I'm not either emotional with what happened. I don't really, doesn't really matter. It's not a good mark on the city, and I get all that. But if we're a team, the team plays by the same rules. 1 year for the vice mayor, 1 mayor for the mayor. Everybody plays by the same rules. And like you just said, Mr. Zomack, if they have something against those rules, then they go a different way.
Can I address one more thing? By running it the way it is right now, and I do think that's a great point. I would be in favor of changing the vice mayor to also not give him a term. But we need to remember that the way it stands right now, the council has the right to reorganize without laundering all the dirty water, all the dirty laundry in public. And while some folks may have the suspicion that councils get together behind closed doors and do things, I've been around for a real long time, and I know they're very careful about that sort of thing. Has it ever happened? Yeah, once in 20 years. But I don't think we should necessarily demand that in order to reorganize, they have to bring up nasty charges and prove someone is malfeasant in his office, rather than just simply saying, this isn't working, we need to change it, we have the right to reorganize ourselves. And in order to move forward as a productive body without bringing fault or disgrace or I attended the same meeting, and I obviously heard something very different from what a number of people heard. That's just the way things happen. I don't want the council to be obligated in order to make things work, to be accusing and pointing fingers. I want them to have the option of saying, this isn't working, we need to change it.
Okay. Do you have any comments, sir?
I agree what you had to say about having the term of mayor for 1 year and having the term that coincides with the term of vice mayor. I think it's time to move forward and move towards the future, and the future is having a term, again, that coincides with the term of vice mayor. Aside from any drama, that's the only way where I truly see that we're going to be able to move together as a city.
I have 2 comments, and then I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. The first comment is actually a question to our attorney, and that's that it's my understanding that when a legal document is silent on the issue, sometimes that's intentional, and there are reasons for that silence. Is that a correct statement?
That's a very general statement.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that's true.
Okay. All right. And then the other comment, and I raised this issue last time around, and that's that one of the things that I'm concerned about is not what happened 2 months ago or a month ago. What I'm concerned about is the future, and in the event we were to have a mayor that did something nefarious, perhaps in violation of our charter, that the process would be that the council would have to charge that mayor with a violation, and then that would be sent up to Tallahassee to be reviewed by the Ethics Commission in Tallahassee. And it's my understanding that process could take up to a year, which would then make the issue moot. And during that 1 year period of time, we would be stuck with a mayor that perhaps we didn't want to have.
But the same thing happens with a council member. If a council member did something, quote, nefarious, and we had to get rid of them,
Right.
we'd have a long time getting rid of them.
Right.
Because they have to go through the process.
Right, but the mayor is the person that leads the meetings and does all the other things that you talked about. So I don't think that your counterpoint resolves my worry. But we've had enough discussion, and, yes, and I am the chair tonight, so I can call the vote. And what I'd like to do is ask our clerk to do a roll call, because I know that this one's going to be close.
What's the question?
What are we voting on?
What's the question?
Louise, would you?
The question is to leave the charter as it is and not make any change.
Or
In
is
other
it-
words,
I thought
not
the
have a
question was
1
that
year.
we already have
We
a
already-
yes vote on this.
Correct.
To leave the 1 year term for the mayor in, as we
No,
proposed before.
this motion,
The new motion.
this motion would leave the charter as it currently stands, and there would be no 1 year term for the mayor.
But that
If
motion-
this motion passes.
But that motion has yet to be made and seconded.
Yes, no, it has been made and seconded.
Where? You withdrew
Just did
your
the-
second to...
Just did this we just did this before we started our discussion. Louise made the motion, and then there were actually 2 seconds to the motion.
Okay, I missed that part of it.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Dragonetti?
Time to vote?
Time to
Yes.
vote.
No.
Mr. Barron?
No.
Mr. Kroll?
No.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Mota?
No.
Ms. Muniz?
Yes.
Mr. Terranova?
No.
Mr. Zomar?
No.
All right, the motion fails. And thank you all for your discussion.
Let me ask the question now. Since that motion failed, that means we're going to leave this 1 year term
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
Correct. I think that takes care of topic 4. Let's go to topic 5. It's on page 10 of your agenda. And the item for discussion is compensation. And just to review, the motion that was made and seconded would be to double the salary amounts for the council members and mayor and vice mayor, and eliminate the expense account that is currently in place, but allow council members to be reimbursed for qualified expenses. Discussion.
Again, is this something that's, Robert, is this something that's, can be worded intelligently on a ballot?
My answer is virtually any topic can be properly worded on the ballot.
Okay.
My challenge is to find that.
I think there's a reaction on people's part when you give public figures a raise, okay? But I think that would be countered, because I think this group felt that we would be countered by the fact that they have to truly account for expenses that they may not be accounting for now. And as such, it needs to be worded in such a way so that the public perceives it that way, if you know what I mean. So,
This was passed before I became a member of this committee, and I have to say that the numbers over here are way lower than what I see in other towns. even with the doubling of the salaries.
Exactly. That's what we found out. Yeah.
I remember the last time that we had this in 2011. We recommended to the council that we raise their salary amount. They refused to put that on the ballot. And so I think what I'm getting at here, even though we as a committee have voted yes or no on these, the next step is bringing it to the city council. And then it's then at their discretion whether or not it moves forward and on the ballot. So I wanted to remind us all of that, and also that they felt there was no need 5 years ago, and the amount was even less then.
Well, I think they might agree with it this time, since you also reduced the expenses.
Right.
I will tell you that I believe that 99.9% of the citizens of the city do not know that they have an expense account.
Right.
One other piece of that was another piece of discomfort that I raised was I asked for the results of what is normally done within the Human Resources Department, and that is to survey and see how competitive you actually are, all right? I have yet to receive the results of that survey, so I am unaware of whether or not we're comparing apples and pears, and I received somewhat of a remonstration from our city manager for even asking for that piece of public information.
Don't have to look at me when you say that.
but
If we could confine your comments to our charter discussion, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's piece of the action. We're missing a piece of information, and the piece of information is the salary survey. So we really don't know where Sebastian stands.
I had done some research, I mentioned earlier, I can't remember the figures right now, but even compared to like Vero Beach, we're significantly lower. The other thing that just struck me is, when was the charter written? 40 years ago?
About.
Something like that? So have these salaries been the same for 40 years?
No.
No.
No, they haven't.
Does anybody know the last time there was an increase?
Just from my memory, I believe it was not the last time around, but perhaps the one before that. So it would be like
10 years ago.
10 years ago, or perhaps 15.
Yeah.
It has been a long time, and I'm a simple man, and I just think we should simply double their income.
Okay, so from our discussion, it seems as though this item will continue in our line of items with the motion standing. The next item is topic 6 for consideration. There had been some discussion about adding a requirement for charter officer evaluations, and actually a motion was not made. Is there any need to discuss this further? No?
Is that happening now? Are they having an annual evaluation?
I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Okay.
They do it they don't do it as a charter requirement.
right,
They have their own procedure that,
right.
Okay, we'll move on to topic 7 for consideration, removal of charter officers.
There's nothing here for this.
And a motion was not made. So do we want to continue to discuss this or not? It looked like, Mr. Terranova, you led that discussion.
that discussion was to compare it to the model charter that Mr. Zamek had.
Right.
And we were going to do that, but we said, forget it.
Okay,
It was okay the way it was, so this is not a consideration.
all right.
This was on the ballot again in 2011 and defeated. And by almost the same margin, almost 2-1 as the other one I mentioned. For what reason, I don't know, but just as a point of reference, it was on the ballot 5 years ago.
Okay, the last comment here is a suggestion by Ms. Munez about
That's just a
section
typo.
3.03.
It's just a typo, it's not worthy wasting a ballot or something like that.
Does the committee have any other items that they want us to talk about before we prioritize this list?
Before you start, or maybe that is prioritizing. The first section about removing stock, I think we could just leave that off because although it should be cleaned up, this is not the year to do it.
And that, where,
Well, let's see where it hits on the prioritization, because I have those two as the last two.
okay, so, Ms. Kottenberg, what you're suggesting is that we take out topic 2.
Yes.
And 1.
Well, let's do one at a time. Topic 2 is the motion to remove section 1.026 stock passed with unanimous voice vote. So would you make a motion to,
I would move to leave the charter remain the way it is written.
I would second that.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We'll take that one out. Topic 2 is out. So what we have, excuse me, is
Is topic 1 also?
topic 1, thank you.
3,
Yeah, we have topic 1,
3,
topic 3,
2 is on.
topic 4,
Is Louise going to say something about topic 1?
and topic 5.
1, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, so let's start with topic 1. How do we feel about this as a priority in the ballot?
Last.
Yeah.
Last?
I would move to also eliminate topic 1.
And I'd agree with that.
Okay, before we keep removing everything, maybe, and I'm sorry, I'm out of order here a little bit, but would we say that the goal would be to say have 3 topics as the max? Would that be a good goal?
Not bad.
Possibly.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to remove topic 1. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Topic 3. This is the one that,
I think this should be topic number 1 priority.
I agree.
I too.
okay. Topic 4, the item about adding the 1-year term for mayor.
I think that should be 3.
3.
2 or
Anybody
3?
else? 2 or 3?
3.
3.
3. 3 is a consensus?
Yeah.
Okay. So we now have, topic 1 is I'm sorry,
Topic 5, isn't it?
I know where I am.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So far, what we have is the number 1 topic for consideration is the 4-year terms.
Correct.
Topic 3 is adding the term of the mayor.
No, topic 2 is compensation.
I'm sorry?
Topic 2 is compensation.
No, we haven't got there yet.
Item 2 is compensation.
No, that's what she said. That was topic 3,
We're
or
on-
priority
we're
3.
Okay, guys, I really am keeping track of this.
Yeah.
If you all would let me do what I need to do. Topic 5 is the next item, and that would be for compensation. What I'm hearing is that's the number 2 priority. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. And that's where we're at.
Yes.
Okay. And now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Ginsburg to write all of this language.
You know what, one last thought. I really hope that the council will really look at the amount of money that we're and how we're handling it, and that I really hope that all three wind up on the ballot.
Okay. Under staff matters, Mr. Ginsburg, do you have any items you'd like to talk to us about?
No, next you'll be hearing, you've already scheduled your 2 public hearings. So keep an open mind, and we'll see what the public has to say to you, and you can react to that. That's the point of the public hearings, even though we all know that each of our meetings is public. There was a space for public input on every agenda, but the charter does require specifically these 2 meetings.
And just the dates on those again, please.
It looks like it's May 9th and May 24th.
Thank you.
And
Members of
Ask a question?
Do members of the committee come to those meetings?
Yes.
And,
Yes, they should.
okay.
That they should, so they can listen to the public.
Who answers the public questions? If the public has a question, who responds to that?
Depends what the
The
question.
chairman?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but in reading the rules for a public hearing, all of the comments are directed towards the chair.
Correct. I think we have on page 2. It's a little,
Okay,
And so our committee members would
I didn't read the fine print.
would not be interacting with the public specifically. Okay.
Beth, how will the public be notified?
I saw a sample notice that's going to be posted on our bulletin board. It's going to be on the city's website. It's going to be advertised in the newspaper. And there's going to be a notice of the meeting on the sign out front. And the clerk has some specific people who've asked to be notified of issues and things. Those people will get specific notice.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Ginsburg, will this be the first time that we actually see the ballot questions that you will have written?
Well, ordinarily, I would wait until the city council acts to prepare the ordinances for them.
Okay.
The ordinance contains, not only calls the election, but it contains both the ballot question and the language of the charter, how it would change. I came to you with this specific one in response to your request and my answer that I would.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to do whatever the committee wants in this regard. You may want to wait until the public hearings, or maybe after the first public hearing. I mean, I don't know. Whatever you want to do, I'll accommodate you.
I was just curious. That was-
Okay. Otherwise, I'll wait until the city council acts and we'll put it on the ballot.
How does the public know what we proposed? Are they given a handout, or is that in the ads, or how do they know what we propose?
I will leave that a little bit to the clerk, but I don't think that's what the public notice calls for. The public notice doesn't say it. It just indicates that this is their chance to come forward with their thoughts and comments and recommendations to the committee.
So the committee, or the chairperson of the committee would read the particular motion to the public, and the public would respond?
No, I think what would happen generally is, as I recall, especially from the last time, I believe there were members of the public here, and the chair simply opened the public hearing and said, anybody that has any suggestions or comments to make to us, for our consideration, please do so, and this is your opportunity.
So they don't know what we've done, other than maybe.
Well,
If they've read the minutes, they'll know.
Everything
Yeah.
is public here.
Right, okay.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have any items you want to talk to us about? No? Okay. Committee member matters? Anybody have any more? Mr. Zomack?
At the end of the last charter committee, I put together a little white paper in terms of constructive criticism, and I would like to recommend that you think about, and perhaps we even prepare something that improves the efficacy of the operation of the Charter Committee. Having been on 2 now, this one was, to some degree, extremely repetitive of some of the stuff that we went through the first time, okay? So if the committee would give some thought to what actions might be taken, for example, unless something dramatic changes, we took a meeting to look at Articles 5 and 6 that was basically a waste of time, in my estimation, because they're just simply not going to change unless something dramatic happens. And I think the next Charter Review Committee needs to know that, okay? I think the next Charter Committee needs to know things like there are city employees that have a contract. So that influences the employment, and it influences some parts of the charter. Okay? I think they need to know that. I think that can be part of maybe a more extensive orientation. So I would ask the committee to think about things that we could put in front of, somehow get in front of the next charter committee meeting, so that the stuff that they do can be maybe just a little more focused, a little more quickly. Thanks.
Anybody else have any other comments? Okay. Then I will officially announce that there will be 2 public hearings scheduled in May, for May 9th and May 24th, in accordance with the Charter Section 5.03. And if there are no other matters before this committee, then I will adjourn. And thank you all for your time.